the globalist, I mean, they'll be the first people the globalists shut down, but that's after they have a full takeover. Just drooling masses of nobodies given authoritarian control. They're coming. You can really see this whole global system that'll make World War II look like nothing they're trying to set up, and everyone's instincts tell them get ready. Everybody's instincts are saying get ready, 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 get ready. You know, I said I was taking a bunch of calls today, but we're so booked with guests. I've got to probably just look at the guest list this week and scrub a bunch of people off of it, because I want to take your calls. I want to hear from you about what you think about all these UN vehicles around the United States, what you think of FEMA government reports, because that's actually what this is a report conducted with multinational governments and our own government with the occupational 10-state dictatorship that is FEMA. You see, when we come in with intros that say from deep behind enemy lines in occupied Texas, broadcasting worldwide, Alex Jones, I have to come out and make those radical statements because it's so radical what the globalists have done. People are basically caught blindside by it. They're dumbfounded because it just sounds so outrageous. Multinationals, we didn't vote to enter, are running things, and the UN's making our laws, and multinational banks are tax exempt and have diplomatic immunity. And I mean, that's all on record. And they're now coming in and saying, you're not going to use the word mother and father. You're not going to have any real state authority. We're not going to let you have guns. It's a UN treaty. The UN says we're going to take more refugees from Latin America. And that's in ABC News. The UN says. Well, they're illegal, but the UN says, so Obama's allowed to do it. Doesn't matter what the Supreme Court says. The globalists, the Rockefellers, set up the UN in 1945 to set up world government. Go read the book written by David Rockefeller. Go read the charter. Oh, but all the movie stars and the beauty queens, you know, when you watch Miss America, oh, I want to be with the UN and UNICEF and help kids. So people go, well, the UN must be this wonderful thing. The UN is hated all over the world. It runs sex slavery rings everywhere. Look it up. It runs drugs. It is the Legion of Death. And now they want to set up an EU army with the United Nations to, quote, police the nations so they can't leave. They actually say that. And it's just not even news. Oh, they're going to set up a domestic army to arrest people that criticize the open borders. Isn't that great? And I've got stacks of news in the United States at airports where Muslims are attacking Christians and freaking out, or where Muslims are attacking gays they see. That's in the news today. Or where a woman goes into a Catholic church and desecrates Mary, a Muslim woman, and just flips out. These people kill each other in their own countries. They just police each other, get in everybody's faces, run around foaming at the mouth. And now in Germany, they're having to say, Oktoberfest has to be behind closed doors, or you have to go through a checkpoint because the Muslims are coming in and attacking people. If they catch you in more than 11 Muslim nations kissing another man if you're a man or a woman if you're a woman, they kill you. If they rape your wife or daughter and it's her fault and they kill her. This is who our, quote, elite are bringing in. And then meanwhile, I'm going to shoot a special report on this for the Nightly News, but I'm going to do it. And I'm going to cover it some with Pachenik and others that are coming up. Pachenik pops up at 30 minutes, and David Knight takes over. When Pachenik leaves us at the bottom of the hour, is Pachenik on for an hour? 30 minutes. I want to take some phone calls. We will just take nothing but phone calls at the bottom of the next hour. In fact, you can get lined up right now. First-time callers just on this food issue, 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. The Brexit, all these global meltdowns, it's just out of control. The globalists always plan on having a global crisis that would then bring in a greater EU dictatorship, but instead it's causing nation states to pull out because the Liberty Movement warned folks. So the point is the elite aren't the only power in this universe. You have to take action, and you are, and we're starting to gain ground. We'll be back in 70 seconds. Let's just get Pachenik on now. I'll say this. The United States is sitting in a better position than many nations. But everything Obama is doing and the globalists are doing is trying to undermine the country. And I'm going to ask Dr. Pachinik this. If the elite are in control of Europe and the United States, they're successfully undermining Russia and China, but they're successfully undermining the American people as well and the family, and trying to sabotage our own military. What is going on here? And Dr. Steve Pachinik of stevepachinik.com, he, of course, co-wrote books with Tom Clancy. He was involved in all sorts of clandestine operations, the head of psychological warfare for the State Department. You couldn't get a more informed, patriotic insider on, but a member of the Council on Foreign Relations until he resigned. Was one of the first prominent people to expose 9/11 as an inside job in early 2002. He exposed the whole bin Laden hoax accurately. This is a short segment, long segment coming up. But, Doc, you heard my question. I see his schizophrenic policies, and I get the thing of funding all sides or whatever, but it seems to be beyond that. And I know there's lots of different factions, but why does our government do a lot of things that actually help American interest, but then other things that actually undermine our interest? Is that just different power structures?
Well, it is, Alex. As usual, our government is very, very self-destructive, in part because it has become so large that one part literally does not know what the other part. For example, the CIA was supplying ammunition and guns to the so-called rebels who were fighting Bashar Assad, while the military was training others who were pro-Assad. I mean, it is so confusing, and that's why one of the reasons we need a president who's been vetted out completely, not just somebody who the CIA wanted up there. We need a president who understands what it is we're doing, where we're going, and has a coterie of experienced people who have been in crises before. Now, one of the greatest problems in this Brexit is the fact that our government didn't know at all that this was going to happen. Not only was it a binary decision, i.e. either England left or didn't leave, the country was so convinced and so self-delusional, as was Obama and Kerry, that they really didn't map out what would happen in case this was a situation. And in fact, it caught them completely flat-footed. And Kerry admitted it, and Obama had to admit it. In fact, Obama went a week before the Brexit in order to make sure that all of the people around him, i.e. the Wall Street bankers, were there to convince Britain that they rest in the EU.
And so they threatened to hold them hostage. Their bluff got called. Now things are disintegrating. They're in a lot of trouble.
Well, that's correct. The good news is that God loves drunks and the United States. No matter what happens to us and no matter how incompetent our government is, and it's exceedingly incompetent for reasons that we can go into later on, probably because of the entrepreneurial nature of our people and because we're so large and we're blessed by two oceans, it really doesn't affect us. In reality, actually, if people are concerned, what I would say to them is to buy stocks that give a dividend and are, very secure, because basically what you're doing is you're going long with the dollar. Going long with the dollar means that America can bet on the dollar being the supreme currency. And I want to go back to historical precedents where we had brilliant men during the war, World War II, not only Patton, Eisenhower, but we had a gentleman named Morgenthau, a German Jew who figured out very quickly in December of 1944 that in order for America to be a really superpower, we had to denominate all currencies.
Dr. Pachinik, this is powerful. I want you to start over because this is so important about Brexit,
okay.
Where you're coming from, where we're going. Because I remember you on 5 years ago saying, Europe is going to disintegrate, you watch, and then basically breaking this down. So let's talk about this arrogance and what that signifies. And we talk about a command center. We are under FEMA. We are under this whole corporate global model, and the people of Europe have discovered that. 8 nations want to leave the euro. It's dictatorial. We have the Brexit that Obama and others and Hillary, said, they'll never leave. To me, it seems like a big defeat for globalism. And it seems like they were caught flat-footed. But Dr. Steve Pachinik, former member of the Council on Foreign Relations, best-selling author, one of the founders with General Boykin and others of Delta Force, that's on record, the guy that ran the Camp David Accords. I mean, his pedigree is just that amazing. You can just Google his name, and, he can't talk about too much. The Justice Department will come call him into court again, like happens when he comes on the show routinely. Now, because of how secretive, all this stuff is he's been involved in, overthrowing countries, stopping the overthrow of countries. I mean, that's on record. So he's the real deal with a lot of talkers out there. And I tell you, he really predicted 4 years ago after Benghazi what would happen. We're going to go in. We're going to block these Saudi guys. Other people are trying to double cross us. We're going to stop them. That all came out is what happened. I got other sources that are public, others that aren't, that concurred. And so I'm just letting you know he gives us really good intelligence over and over and over and over again. And so what does this British exit mean? Sure, there's going to be shenanigans to try to keep folks in it. I'm not against some union if it's democratic and empowers people and it's just economic. But when it is arresting people that criticize open borders, when it's totalitarian and wants to arrest global warming deniers, like the Democratic Party platform officially says today, then we know this is an authoritarian movement by the big banks, through the Democrats and the Republicans, through the Labor, through the Tory. And this is really an awakening moment. But talking to Pieczenik, if you just joined us, he started getting into the fact that it shows the ineptitude, the arrogance, the flat-footedness. And I agree. Look at the Euro bureaucracy that's unelected, but set up from the start to rule it, because it started as a coal and steel collective. I mean, it started out as a technocracy, folks. It didn't just become one. They're saying, we're just going to have an EU army, and it's going to take over your militaries. We're going to start commanding them. The bureaucracy is going to put out a report. We're going to bring in new commanders over your commanders. Folks, that is literal occupation. That is like Hitler coming in and putting his French generals in over the French, the Vichy. I mean, I harp on that because it's what's happening. This is so crazy, I can't even believe it. And globalist policies trying to jack up food prices worldwide, trying to bring in a crisis where these guys consolidate control. But what if they bring in a crisis so big it brings them down? By the way, I'm not sure licking my lips wanting to see the whole system crash. I want these evil globalists at the top to stop wrecking things and basing things on conquest and collapse instead of renaissance. So I'm not looking for some civil war. I'm not looking to, just see Herman von Rompuy and Merkel's head on a platter. I just realized these people aren't as smart as Napoleon or Hitler. They were bad guys, by the way. Weren't as smart as people before them, and they just think they're invincible because they're in control, and it gets more and more dangerous. So to cover the waterfront, and one of the time we have is Dr. Steve Pieczenik, stevepieczenik.com. Let's walk through this history, where we are, and then I want to ask you about the global economic system, because we got FEMA reports and others saying worldwide food crises, you name it. Is that hype or what's going on? Dr. Pieczenik, thanks for joining us. Start back over.
All right. I think it's important for the audience to understand, we Americans, in 1944, because of the incredible quality of leaders that we had at that point under FDR, Morgenthau and others in the Treasury developed what was called the Bretton Woods Conference, which basically stated very clearly that for the next half a century to a century, we will have the dollar denominated as the currency of the world. That became so ingrained that anybody who has a chance to go to New Hampshire, Mount Washington, should see that little room which determined the outcome of American superpower. It was not only our Army, it was the brilliance of men who could foresee what would happen to our country. Now, taking that forward, the French came in after World War II, although they were defeated. My father was in the French Army, and the first order he got was retreat. And unfortunately, 2.2 million men retreated. The reality is that France, after World War II, said to the Americans that we have to co-opt the rise of Germany, because France had been defeated twice by the Germans in World War I and II. So they came together on this theoretical notion, which was total nonsense, to co-opt the Germans by creating a United States of Europe. That, in turn, had no legitimacy. It had no concrete basis. And as Alex told you, it basically was a bunch of bureaucrats ironically put in the worst country of all, which was not really a country, Belgium, at the site where Napoleon was defeated in 1815, only 5 days before the Brexit. So in a way, history recapitulates itself when England and Germany defeated France. What this is the end of globalization. For 5 to 10 years, I've been saying that the so-called notion of globalization is artificial and not real, because what was happening is the big banks on Wall Street were in fact putting their tentacles out to every country. However, because they're basically so arrogant and inept, like our government, and you saw this in 2008, they quickly ran with Obama to Britain, and before Britain went on the Brexit